Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Ransomware Detection, Don't Pay Up, Backup. My name is Kevin Collins from Unitrends, and I'm here with Dick Zaplar, Product Marketing Manager, and he'll be taking us through the presentation. Don't forget, one lucky attendee will be walking away with a $100 Amazon gift card. We'll call the winner at the end of the webinar. But before we get started, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. The session will be recorded, and after the event, you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand version of the webinar. I would also encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can do so by typing them into the Q&A box in the bottom right of the player. We'll answer your questions at the end of the session. At this point, I'll turn it over to Dick. Enjoy the presentation, and Dick, take it away.
Thanks, Kevin. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you joining us today. I'm coming to you from Burlington, Massachusetts, where it's snowing quite heavily. So thank you for indulging us. It was a chore to get to work today. But as Kevin said, I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Unitrends, and I wanted to spend about the next 20 minutes or so bringing you up to date on ransomware as it continues to evolve. And so I always like to start off my webcast with this slide because it really gives a sense of the importance of avoiding downtime. If you look at availability as in terms of the percentage of uptime, you say I'm up 99% of the time. That sounds pretty good, but what it means is that really on per month you're down about 7 hours. And the industry's kind of coalesced around the average cost of downtime at about $9,000 per minute. Obviously, that varies depending on the size of your company, the types of applications that are going down, the business you work in, so forth. But if you can increase your uptime from 99.9% of the time to what we call 4 nines, 99.99% of the time, you literally can save your company almost $400,000 per month, which is quite incredible. So when we're talking about ransomware, we're obviously trying to talk about keeping downtime from happening, and these are the payoffs. These are the benefits of avoiding a ransomware attack. Okay, so the latest data I've been able to find as far as ransomware events by industry was obviously from 2016, a full year. We'll get 2017 shortly, but you can see here that almost every single industry has been hit by ransomware, with the healthcare industry being the predominant target. And that's pretty easy to understand. Healthcare data is obviously very critical, it's very private, it's worth a lot, and that healthcare providers will pay to get their money back. We heard about a large ransomware attack that happened in the UK against major hospitals there, and they ended up paying. They were down for days. They ended up paying to get their data back. But also the financial services, education, and professional services are also very large targets. So if you're involved in any of those industries, pay close attention because it really is only a matter of time. You will be targeted, you will be, and you will be hit. So you just need to be able to recover, and this is what I'm going to talk about today. So it's no longer good enough to just be reactive. You can't just sit back, hope that you're not going to get hit, and then wait to get hit and then have a recovery plan. You really need to go after it and try to prevent it, because once you're hit, there is a cost. And as you can see, at $9,000 per minute of downtime, it gets very, very expensive. So we're going to talk about how you can be proactive today to defend against ransomware. And I also like to use the analogy of it takes multiple layers of protection to protect against a ransomware hit. So just like normal glass will be penetrated by a bullet, bulletproof glass really is multiple levels of glass and all that actually gives you that protection. So we're going to talk about the multiple layers that it takes in order for you not to see that red screen of death. And so these are layers that I would like to talk about today. There's the table stakes, which everybody should be doing, but are becoming less and less preventative of an attack. And then some of the other steps that you should be taking as IT managers or as a data protection specialist. And then finally talk about the newest level of automated detection that is available on the market today, and spend some time on that. So let's just go through this. This is the crux of the presentation today, and let's get started. So table stakes. Absolutely, you need to have a virus scanner, and you should be doing some employee training. Now, virus scanners will work up to a point. You take a leading virus protection availability, and in order for that virus scanner to protect you against the latest versions of ransomware, that ransomware has to have been found in the marketplace, a copy of that ransomware software sent to the virus protection company, then develop a response, put it in their code, and distribute that code out to their user base. So the newer variants that are coming on the market, and believe me, there are new variants coming on the market daily. It may protect you against some of the older versions, but it certainly won't protect you against the latest versions or new variants that are in the industry. And I've been trained. I've sat through employee training at the last several companies I've been at. But all it takes is one bad click. And when I talk to our customers in the education marketplace, they invariably tell me it's a teacher. And you think that it would be the kids, but it's the teacher that clicks on some link in an email and infects the entire school system. So table stakes get you a little bit of protection, but in no way actually is an answer to the ransomware solution. Another kind of table stakes type approach is you need to do good data management and to limit the damage. And by that I mean you need to follow the 3-2-1 data protection strategy. You need to have 3 copies of the data. You need to have 2 of them located off-site, or 2 different formats, and you need to have 1 of the copies off-site and disconnected from the internet, so that even if someone were able to get into your network, they wouldn't be able to get up and get into that. So with Unitrends, we have our protection appliances. They replicate across sites automatically, and then you want to have 1 of those replicating up into the cloud as well. Cloud is great for this. It gets it off of your site, so even if you have a natural disaster beyond ransomware, hurricanes and the like, your data is protected. The Unitrends cloud does offer infinite retention, so that there are some data elements. For example, if you work in a drug company and you do human testing, you're required by law to keep the results of that drug trial 5 years past the life of the last participant. So, either you have to track all the participants to make sure they're still alive and then measure off 5 years, or you just keep the data in perpetuity. That's the easier way to do it, and that's what happens. So the cloud is really an ideal place to do that. You don't keep it on spinning disks. Tapes get old and brittle. Formats change. Really, the cloud is an ideal place for you to do that, and also for archiving. A technology you don't think about that can provide some level of protection against ransomware is the concept of copy data management. All of Unitrends' backup appliances have this capability. And what copy data management does, it allows you to spin up a test and dev environment using your backups that are isolated from your production environment. So think of it kind of as a sandbox with the latest data, with your backups, with the latest copies of your applications, with the latest settings, with the latest versions and all that sort of stuff. So it allows you to do several things. It allows you to install some, to test software patches, upgrades, and so forth to make sure those are clean. It allows the stakeholders to play around and do what-if analysis and so forth. And it does allow you can bring up files that you think might be suspected of ransomware activity, but you don't have to bring them up and test them in your production environment. So this CDM, or copy data management capability, Unitrends, with our latest version of our operating system, included an antivirus scanner called ClamAV. It's a Linux-based virus scanner. It's open source, so it's easy to update. It's free of charge. But we actually allow you to run virus scanning against the files as you bring them up for a copy data management job. So even in your test and dev environments, you can test against ransomware and make sure that it's not there. There are occasionally servers that are out there that just can't handle the load that a virus scanner puts on top of them. And so you can then run tests against those backups that are literally haven't been scanned. You can bring those up and test them in the copy data management environment. So it's just another step, another environment, another way of checking to make sure there is no ransomware and being able to test for it without impacting your production environment. Also, don't forget your SaaS applications. More and more of our customers are using Office 365 in the cloud. You can also do G Suite, Salesforce. These all are susceptible to ransomware. Microsoft, they are the platform provider. They are not responsible for your data. You are as responsible for protecting your Office 365 data as you are for protecting the data in your production applications on site. And the native protection that comes with Office 65, out of the box, is not sufficient to protect against the ransomware attack. If the data gets put into, if the user puts it in the wastebasket and the wastebasket gets emptied, that data is lost forever. If there's a ransomware attack and any files or folders that were created after the ransomware, those are lost forever. So ransomware can affect your SaaS applications. So Unitrends has contracted with, and we resell, Office 365 protection from spanning. And you need to make this part of your ransomware protection strategy. It does infinite retentions. So once a day, it backs up the entire Office 365 environment, including SharePoint and OneDrive. It stores those backups infinitely, so you can go back as far as you want. If somebody deletes a calendar or an item out of OneDrive or an email, they can go back, they can self-restore. They don't have to bother an admin. The user interface is so simple that people can go back and easily find the mails that they have deleted. And they also have a phone interface so that people can do it in a mobile type environment. So we looked at all of the offerings out there and we really selected spanning as our Office 365 protection, and that needs to be part of your ransomware protection portfolio. Okay, so we're getting now down more into the details of the protection. And I want to talk about now our backup and recovery appliances, and we offer two. There's the recovery series, which is hardware, and Unitrends backup, which is software, and both of them have these capabilities, so that I'm going to talk about now. But really what you want to do is the multiple steps is you obviously want to protect your data with the 3-2-1 strategy. You want to have a secure devices that are impermeable to ransomware penetration. You need to test often, and we'll talk about testing and what that entails. And you also want to be able to detect an active ransomware infection, and we'll talk about that too. So let's focus in first on secure. So what makes a backup solution less secure? If you have a solution that has been pieced together from multiple vendors or multiple sources, there literally is kind of a gap between each of these technologies. And a backup and recovery device really has 30 or 40 different elements in it. If you think of the cloud integration software, the backup software, the interface to the user, the user interface, the deduplication engine, the encryption engine, all of these things are very critical, and they all represent basically an open door that you can that somebody can use to get in and disable or encrypt your protection. And I'll also tell you that ransomware targets primarily Windows appliances. Windows is basically an open architecture. It also is about 90% of the servers that are out there in the world. So obviously, if you're going to be targeting an environment for ransomware, you're going to go after the market that is the 90% level. And generally, they do not target Linux. But Linux development is done in a separate way. Linux tends to be closed. It tends to be, that the components are more hardened and delivered that way. So what you really want for your platform is you want a Linux-based backup and recovery solution from a single vendor that's building it for one purpose. It's not a general purpose server running software. You want a hardened Linux solution that is purpose-built, all in one, a single vendor. Also, if there's any issues with it, rather than trying to figure out who is the source of the problem, is it the backup, is it the storage, is it the cloud, you want to be able to call one person and get resolution to the problem. So for security, a hardened Linux all-in-one device is the best way to go. For testing, you should be able to tell any stakeholder when was your last good backup, because that's technically the point at which you will be able to recover. So if you're backing up daily, if you have incremental backups that happen every few hours, you need to be able to know that those backups occurred and when the last successful one that you can then use as a recovery platform. So you should have a solution that tests your recovery and your backups on a regular basis and then be able to alert you to any issues with the backups. So all of our appliances come with an application called Recovery Assurance, which can be automatically test both recovery and backups. The Recovery Assurance will then put an email into your inbox or a notification on your dashboard as to the backup capabilities, when they happened, and whether they were able to meet the RPO and RTO objectives that you have sent. Also, our Recovery Assurance will create a report that is so good that many of our customers in the healthcare industry use the report in and of itself for HIPAA compliance audits. HIPAA requires that you have a recovery program, that it be tested, and that the results of the tests be shared with the auditors. And this report from our Recovery Assurance software will actually meet all three of those requirements. And finally, detection. And this is something that was new with our 10.0 operating system, and then refined. We call it Ransomware 2.0 with our 10.1 release. That we actually include in our operating system some artificial intelligence that will actually learn as it monitors your backup programs. And so it actually will examine every single backup every time it runs, and it will compare it to the version of the backup that was done previously. And the AI has been trained to be able to recognize the impact of what a ransomware will do to a file, the change rates, the types of changes, which files will change, and so forth. And we'll be able to identify files or backups that are infected with ransomware. And if it identifies a file that it believes has been infected by ransomware, it will then send an email to the administrator immediately. It will also put an alert on the dashboard that we believe that you've been infected with a ransomware activity, and it will also flag with an icon in your database inventory all the files that we suspect have been infected by ransomware, so that you won't try to initiate a recovery from an infected file. So this is active, not passive ransomware detection, and it's automated. It happens every time you do a backup. All of this is being done on the backup appliance, so it's not affecting the performance of the production environment. And so this is the level of ransomware activity that you need to have now. What we're finding is that ransomware, the nature of ransomware has changed lately. Ransomware is trying to be more stealthy. It's trying to operate more in the background. It's searching out more of the files. It's discriminating about what files it goes after, avoiding things like operating systems and application software, and going more after the database and the actual user data. The idea is that if it can operate in stealth mode longer, it can encrypt more critical files, and therefore ensure that it more likely that they get paid. So the ransomware is operating kind of under the covers for longer periods of time, and that's why you need to be able to have active checkups going on with every backup. So that comes standard. This ransomware 2.0 capability comes standard with the operating systems for both our hardware and software recoveries. So really, you need to be proactive. You need to know if you've been attacked. You need to know the impact of the outage, exactly which files have been affected. And then with the testing, you'll be able to know if there are recovery issues in advance. And then if there are recovery issues, those can be fixed. And then you'll know also we use proactive technology on our hardware to be able to detect any failures with disks and motherboards and things like that. So being proactive is really what protection from ransomware has become. Okay? So that's really what I wanted to tell you. We have a couple of assets on our website that you might be interested in. We have a 5-minute DR health check. If you go and look at, go to our website, search on health check, you'll actually see that there's a little interactive test for you to take. It takes about 5 minutes, and then it will make some recommendations at the end for ways that you can tighten up your backup process and lock it down a little bit more. We can also demo all of the things I've talked about today. We can talk about a demo of the ransomware recovery, and we also have people that are experts in this as well. So with that, I will turn the mic over back to Kevin and for the Q&A portion of our webinar. Kevin?
Thank you, Dick. Great presentation. There's still time to ask a question. You just have to do so by typing it into the bottom right hand corner of the player, and we'll get to your question here shortly. First question is, how are the detection processes controlled? Are you updating them for new iterations of ransomware that may slip through, or does the detection require adjustments?
Yeah, okay. So we don't search based upon particular ransomware variants. So what we do is we look for the evidence of ransomware activity at the file level during the backup process. What we do is we do incremental backups. So when you first get your Unitrends appliance, we do obviously a total replication of your environment, and then we do incrementals from then on. And what we look for is if you're doing an incremental every 2 hours, and the change rate is at the 3% level, except that at the close of the month, the close of the year, it's a financial transaction, that gets heavy. We can recognize that. But all of a sudden, on a Tuesday, in the middle of September, there's an 80% change rate in the backup. Then we're alerted that something has happened, something out of the ordinary, and that's what we then flag it. We open it up and take a look at it, and that's when the alerts are sent. So we don't really have to stay on top of the individual variant. We're looking at the evidence of their work at the file level.
Okay. Next question is, would you say that ransomware is a primary malicious activity that's affecting business today?
Oh yeah. So I was an analyst, industry analyst for Aberdeen Group before I joined Unitrends, and I was constantly looking for, the causes of downtime in a data center. And I quickly identified that, and this was a few years ago, that the number one cause of downtime tended to be operator error, putting on bad software patches and unintentionally deleting files, and that malware was actually a very minor cause of downtime. In the meantime, the studies that I've been watching from other analyst groups is that malware has grown as a cause of downtime to be one of the top 3 or 4. So, and that obviously depends on the industry you're in and the size of your company and the amount of protection that your company would have, but it is absolutely a major cause of downtime today.
Okay, next question is, does Unitrends do any backup to tape?
We support backup to tape. We have an interface to a tape device if you still want to be able to use that physical media. We also do backup to removable disks if you want to take those off-site as well. But we are primarily, most of the people that we deal with now are replicating and backing up to the cloud. Last year, our cloud, the cloud part of our business grew tenfold. For the larger sales that we have, about 80% of those sales involve cloud in some way, and that we currently protect about 100 petabytes of customer data in the cloud. So cloud is becoming really kind of the go-to place, particularly for small and mid-sized companies who don't have a secondary location or don't want to have to manage the physical devices that they're doing. So you can get your stuff up into the cloud very easily, particularly when you're doing a incremental only, and then that it can be very much protected against access and encryption.
Okay, next question is, what does Unitrend do to limit the propagation of ransomware?
So we will shut down. So basically, when we detect the ransomware, then we will not initiate an automatic recovery process. We will leave that to the administrators to do that, because setting the timing of that and what files you want to roll back to and how far you want to go back is kind of a personal corporate decision. But it will stop the ransomware infection by rolling back your environment to a time when you were uninfected.
Okay, next question is, how would you compare the Unitrends product against another such as Veeam?
We are the only company that actually includes the artificial intelligence in the operating system of our product. And we are learning about that and getting better at that. This Ransomware 2.0 is much better now than it was our Ransomware 1.0. Anybody can just roll back. That's become the primary way that you recover from ransomware. We catch them in the act while it's going on, and therefore start that recovery process faster.
Okay. Is there a way to find the files that were flagged in a ransomware detection?
Yes, you go into our user interface, you go into your file inventory, and there'll be a very visible icon literally next to every single file that we believe has been infected. So we flag them for you so that you don't have to guess.
And I guess a follow-up to that question, so when and if you detect ransomware, do you have any way to detect attribution so that you can kind of tie it back to the end user that actually was infected?
No, that's not part of our job. That would be more for the virus scanner and the networking people, not the data backup and recovery people.
Okay. Let's see. Next question is, and this is more of a security issue than as opposed to a backup issue, but we've got somebody asking about our false positive rates.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. There will be false positives because there are just some anomalies that happen with data. But if it's limited to a file or two, it's very easy then to run an automated test using that file to see if the application actually opens up and if the data is good. So you kind of want to be, there's type 1 errors and type 2 errors. Type 1 error is missing the ransomware, so you obviously turn the inspection capabilities up higher than it needs to be, so you be sure you don't miss any. But there will be some false positives. We're learning how to detect those and to minimize those. And as the AI gets smarter, and with your particular backups and in your calendars and your frequencies, the number of false positives will decrease.
Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. We have data compliance requirements. Where are your data centers located, and can we choose where our data sits?
Good question. Probably somebody from Canada is on this call. So yes, we have Unitrends Cloud is located in 5 countries around the world: the United States, Canada, Great Britain, Germany, and Australia. So yes, absolutely. If you're a Canadian company, for example, your data has to stay in Canada. It can't come to the United States. And absolutely, you can declare, tell us where you want to keep your data, and we will live with those compliance and give you the compliance reports to prove that's the case.
Okay. And then last question is, how does Unitrends license their software and appliances?
Okay, so our hardware appliance is licensed by socket. By server, and there's no licensing based upon operating system or applications or anything like that. So if you want to add an application onto an existing server and have that backed up, there's no additional charges. You don't have to keep track of all that with us. They have 1, 3, 5-year contracts and renewals and so forth. Our software is by socket. And same thing, same corollary, no licensing by operating system or application or anything like that. So it's very straightforward, very easy to do, and we like it that way. It keeps us sane and doesn't force you to jump through a million hoops.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dick. As a reminder, this webinar was recorded, and you'll receive an email with a link to the on-demand version later on today. And the $100 Amazon gift card goes to Pete Young of Ohio. We'll be in touch, Pete. We'll get that out to you. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to having you on future webinars. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.